And it looks absolutely glorious in Fiji. The whole country, I don't think I've seen it like this since we started the net. It's just a big gap in the cloud from in the entire West Pacific there.
Is that what Fiji looks like?
Yes, David said, is that what Fiji looks like? There's a lot of islands there. We don't normally see them on the satellite pictures. Usually got cloud whizzing over it, but it certainly looks good. And talking to Andrew this morning, it sounded like there were quite a few people assembling for potential passage making. Good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. And we actually got a couple of emails on the weekend. Thank you very much, folks, because we didn't really know who was left out there. We knew there was some in Fiji, but we got an email from Bill on Kenner in New Caledonia and letting us know that there were still a few boats there planning on a New Zealand passage. So good morning to you, Bill and family. Enjoying New Caledonia weather at the moment. Doesn't look too bad, except for down the bottom looks a little bit of cloud coming through. I'll tell you what, our weather the last 24 hours here has not been pleasant, as I'm sure Toranui up there in Kawau will confirm. We are up on the ridge here. Hopefully they were sheltered from what was coming through from the west, northwest, now west and southwest, southwest. Absolutely torrential rain, very, very gusty wind. It was started about midday and continued through until only a couple of hours ago, actually. Just miserable. Very hard to sleep, I might add. So that's been our conditions for a while. So we are quite envious of you folk up there in Fiji at the moment. All right, let's have a look at a little bit of news. The major news from Asia was the Indonesian Lion Air flight took off from Jakarta in a new Boeing 777 MAX 8 with 189 people on board and crashed into the sea not very far away. Absolutely no survivors, and no one really knows what the problem was. The pilot had just talked to air traffic control to say he was returning, but other than that, they don't know what was going on with that new plane, which is meant to be very good in the fuel consumption. It's about to be used in Australia, so I guess they're going to be fairly keen to find out what went on there. Brazil, good morning, Mr. Troy. Marina will be interested to know you've got a new president or prime minister, whatever they call the leader of Brazil, Bolsonaro. A bit of a nervous time there. He was predicted to win, but it is a bit of a worry, as evidently he has not got a great civil rights and ecological preservation. That's an interesting way of describing it. Record. He is very, very right-wing. There has been a prolonged recession in Brazil, rising crime rates and widespread corruption. So it's not surprising that someone from the far right got elected. That tends to be what happens when people finally get fed up with what's going on. But so a few people are very happy, and a few people are very, very cautiously waiting for what will happen. If any of you have lots and lots of money and are sick of the cruising life, there is a village in New Zealand, in a beautiful little spot actually on a lake. Lake Waitaki Village in the South Island is for sale. There's not a lot around it, but it is in a beautiful surrounding. It was built in the 1930s for workers' accommodation for the dam. There's a big dam there. And since 1989, it's been empty. And it's now for sale for 2.8 million, which is only 1.4 million UK pounds, which is very strong at the moment. 2 for 1 you get here. There's 8 3-bedroom houses. There's a restaurant, really nice looking one. A lodge, water rights, of course, because you've got the dam right there. 9 garages, and it's on 14 hectares of land. So there you are. If you don't want to be around a built-up area like Auckland or Wellington, and you're used to peace and tranquility in the ocean, then you can buy Lake Waitaki Village. It's up for sale. Just recently announced, a few hours ago, Angela Merkel has announced that this is her last term in office. She'll be stepping down as party leader in December, and she will not stand for re-election in 2021.
Just as well, she'll be picked up.
Yes. Well, she had a bit of a struggle this time around, didn't she? Her popularity has indeed plummeted because of her green open border policy.
Yeah,
she's 64 years old, so decided enough is enough. All right, from the sublime to the ridiculous, a New Zealander, actually he's now working in Malaysia, but he's was in London for the World Scrabble competition, the championship, but you didn't know there was a World Scrabble championship. Anyway, it was in London. It's his 4th time he's won it. So I bet you wouldn't be able to come up with a word that he didn't know about. He beat a young man from California. Scrabble, by the way, has been around 70 years. Closer to home, a tornado hit the outskirts of Hamilton yesterday, quite spectacular, around the Ruakura area for people that know Hamilton. Just picked things up and deposited them like trampolines about 10 metres away, and loads of rubbish and dirt sort of swapped places. So that was pretty exciting for various farmers. Fortunately, it was a farming area, because otherwise it would have done an awful lot more damage. So that's about the roundup of any news that's of any interest. Not a hell of a lot going on, is there, around the world, but sounds like you guys are all out there and more interested in what the weather might be doing between you and Australia and New Zealand. There are a few people around on the road. I haven't heard from Revilo this morning. I'll just check my emails here. Usually they send one in fairly late in the piece, but they won't hear us, so probably won't hear from them. But I guess, oh yes, there is one here just come in. So if you had been one of those people that took off and didn't mind the weather that was going to be coming at you, they are at 3132 and 172, and indeed got 18 to 32 knots from 255, so just south of west-southwest, 3 to 4 metre waves there, swell. So pretty decent. I don't think they'll be fishing, so I think Graham and Lynn, you're not going to be getting too much in the way of fish when they get home again. And another report from Four Seasons there about the lovely weather in Muscat Cove. Everyone seems to be enjoying it. It's about time it was good there. You're probably wishing you were about to set sail. There was another boat that's on its way, but I haven't heard from your wife, so hopefully all is well. And I'm just going to pause to see if there's any last minute things from you guys before we start the weather a bit early. Toranui, go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, good morning, Patricia. Thanks for that position. I lost 6516 this morning, just huge amount of static there. So, I spoke to him last night on his phone and found sick all of them.
Yes, I'm sure the rest of his family will be very happy that they flew home and left the boys to it. So, it's pretty well. I hope you were fine last night. We had a really bad night here on the hill, over.
Pretty breezy here. We're at Harris Bay and pretty big time. It's like right down Barnacle Court. So we're in the Calgary and all that damn boy clear, over.
Yeah, boy, it's was certainly very snotty. It's really calmed down now, though. The pressure, by the way, folks, we went down to 992.3, I think it was yesterday. We're currently on the rise again, 997.3. So it's been down for a bit, over 24 hours. 15 degrees it is, and only 5 knots of west-southwest. We've got actually a few more spots of rain now, but there has been torrential rain on and off, but just a few spots around at the moment. And the clouds back again. It's about 90% cloud now. It had dropped away. We're just getting these bands coming through, really, really unpleasant and not very nice for sailing, because it's it just goes up and down so rapidly. It's almost impossible to set things decently because it changes 5 minutes later. It's one of those times when you have to just have a cup of tea and see if it's still the same at the end of it. Very, very unpleasant conditions. All right, if you hear anything, Graham, you will hear things better than I can with the no electrical noise up there. So just pipe up if there's anybody. So I'll just do one more call. Is there anybody before I pass the microphone? Well, there is somebody there. Could you give your boat name a couple of times? Okay, I'm not picking it up. Your radio is sort of coming in and out, but hopefully, Graham, it might copy you well too. Go ahead with whatever you want and let me know where you are. Over.
Location, Minerva Reef North. Minerva Reef North.
Oh, you're booming in now. Minerva Reef North, and I forgot to tell people that there are 7 boats in Minerva Reef North. David, I'm sure, is going to cover when it would be a good time to leave. Good morning to 2C2 up there. That's how I know there's 7 people, 7 boats up there.
Maybe more now.
Maybe more now. How many are there now? Over.
9 boats now. 9 boats.
Alrighty, and you are going to be looking for weather to Opua, I presume. Is that correct? Over. Okay, yeah, very good signal from you now. I don't know what was the problem at the start. Alright, we'll definitely be covering that. And good morning to you. It looks a little bit not very pleasant weather. Did you get those frontal systems going through? Over.
Very mild. Very mild. Light wind here now, and nothing significant.
Oh, that's interesting. So, yeah, David's just having a look there. Yes, you'll be very happy you weren't all trying to get further south. You would have heard the position of the conditions that Revilo came in with. Their 18 to 32 knots from the west-southwest down there at 31, 32. Fortunately, they got a lot of westing in. They're currently at 172. All right, we'll certainly be covering that, and I am going to pass the microphone now. Here's David.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And yeah, we'll talk about Minerva in a couple of minutes here. All right, yesterday we reviewed the 500 millibar analysis, and we saw how that shortwave trough created and enhanced the depression that's over New Zealand. A nasty bugger, this one. I can tell you that, Patricia. Gave you the lowdown on what we've been experiencing. This morning, not only is this in play, both the depression here and the 500 shortwave, but of further interest is a jet streak at 250 millibar. Now, the jet's exit is between New Zealand and the islands. So the upflow at that point, that is one of the 2 places that you get upflow in a streak, and that is the polar exit. Anyhow, that aids and abets the current depression as well. Not only its development, but its continued involvement. And it also affects and enhances the cold front and quasi-stationary front that's extending north over the cruising routes. Now, the cold front, and it's got a prefrontal trough with it as well, that's affecting Newcastle and the Loyalties, and also southern Vanuatu, while the quasi-stationary front runs to the east of Fiji. That's why Fiji is in pretty good shape this morning, but it nails Tonga. I'm afraid Tonga is getting the worst of that one. Now, a trough also runs from the Solomons right over the Santa Cruz Islands and then on to Samoa, and from Samoa goes to the southern coast. Now, let's jump to Thursday. That's the 1st of November. We talked about that being a possible departure date for those of you up in the islands. Now, The high is going to be found in the Tasman. It's going to extend the ridge virtually to all of the islands at that time. Now, there may be a trough that runs from Vanuatu and Fiji. The winds, though, will be probably southeast 15 knots, give or take. Now, these winds in that direction, I'm including Newcastle, Vanuatu, Fiji, and Tonga. Now, by Saturday, our high is going to move to just to, I would say, the north of New Zealand. I would suspect you see that on the grids. And central pressure roughly 1023, 1023. Now, the trades are going to increase, even though it doesn't sound like much of a high. Remember, we looked at the last two digits of the central pressures, and it gives us an idea of what the winds are at the periphery. So it's going to blow a little bit. Basically, we'll get some nice trade winds up in the islands, but they'll all be in and around the 20 knot mark. Now, the next front that will affect New Zealand, for anyone that's going to be en route, may be Wednesday the 7th. It looks fairly weak, this one. The more potent front is probably going to be around Friday the 12th, and that would be around midnight. Now, this is just a guess at this point because the models have not done too well in the timing of these, but there is a second front, and it is going to be a little bit more powerful, and that's the one that you'd be concerned about. Now, it'll be preceded by the usual northwest winds, so even the New Caledonia yachts can have a passage out of this. And I would say for New Cal in particular, leaving, I would say Thursday morning and arriving about 6 days later. That's the normal passage from New Cal. Now, for Fiji and Tonga yachts, the winds may have more of a southerly component that time. It's possible to go Thursday and Friday or Friday, but Friday the winds are going to increase just a wee bit more, from 20 up maybe to 25. But if you angled your escape route to make the ride a little bit easier, then that's doable as well. So all in all, the passage is not a great one either, just like the last one wasn't very good. The one before that was a jewel, but we don't care about that because that's history. But anyhow, this one is doable, particularly for the New Caledonia yachts who have been waiting and waiting to get a decent window. That run is usually a difficult run, mainly because usually we have southeast trade winds, and of course, if you look at the course, you need to run from New Cal to New Zealand. You can see that's right into the wind. But anyhow, this time it's looking halfway decent. Now, we've done this trip. I can't even count how many times. And each time we do it, we get to see Norfolk Island. We see the east side of it on one trip. We see the west side of it on another trip. Always funny that. Now, if things turn to custard, if you do decide to go, for those who have never been in this area, you can anchor in and around Norfolk Island. Now, it's generally uncomfortable, and seldom can you get ashore, but sometimes you can. If you do, someone needs to be on the yacht at all times. That's the rules. And of course, you have to have pre-clearance to get in. So it's really not necessary to do that. It's a lot easier to get to New Zealand and take a week's vacation and fly there and enjoy Norfolk, frankly. But in terms of protection from heavy swell, that certainly could offer that. So, and where you do anchor, which part of the island, that's a function, obviously, of the wind direction. And like I say, it's seldom peaceful, but you do have that protection. Now, I don't see at this point in time where you would have to worry about that. The winds are not going to be strong enough to have to worry about seeking shelter there. I'm just mentioning it just in case. Now, the Tonga departure is really the hardest one, mainly because of that southerly component. yeah, the start is going to be a bit of a pain if you do go on Thursday. You can wait for a better window, of course, but the other option is just to try to get out of Dodge if you possibly can. Take your time and get to Minerva. North Minerva is probably the best, and just wait for that high to slide east. Then if you get there, you'll just have a short wait really before things come right. Now, all 9 of you that are in Minerva now, well, I think you need to hang out till probably the weekend. Again, we don't give advice, but if it were us, we probably would do that, mainly because we don't like to get pounded. And the winds do look like they'll be headwinds up until that point. And once that high moves east, then the winds are going to back. And then if you did wait, you'll be happy you did so, because then the run to New Zealand would be much, much better. So that's the story there for Minerva. Looking now at good old Tonga with satellite imagery, we could see the trough that we described earlier. There are breaks in the trough for sure, but generally expect cloud and scattered showers for the kingdom. Conditions this morning at 6 a.m. Vavao, scattered cloud, very, very high humidity, very high 90s, 98, 99. Might as well be swimming as you're walking along. Barometer 1012. The Hapai's northerly 7 knots, clouds scattered to broken to actual overcast conditions, and the barometer 1011. And Tongatapu, they had earlier thunderstorms, wind light and variable, meaning that it's coming from all different directions. And currently it's raining, at least currently as of when this forecast was given, or condition report was given, and the barometer there 1012. The winds by lunch now, my forecast, I see north to maybe north-northwest, about 15 to 20. Tomorrow, early on northwest, but then possibly shifting to the southwest, maybe about 15 knots. And come Thursday, we're looking at southeast 15 in the main. So there you go. Maybe Thursday to Minerva. Saturday, near 25 south, we'll be looking at southeast winds 20 to maybe even up to 25 knots. Maybe not that high, but a bit fresh, let's put it that way. But getting into Minerva, North Minerva, is not going to be a major worry at that time. There is a possibility of cloud bands going through that could affect visibility, but those are moving along pretty rapidly. So if you're unsure of getting in that pass, which is actually pretty easy, but for your first time, you may want to be cautious. Just wait for the band to go through, and you'll be fine. And the other boats there, I'm sure, could help you out. Take the dinghy out to the pass, catch a fish, show you the way in, all that sort of thing. No problem. Okay, over to Fiji now. At last, as Trish said, it looks good, particularly on satellite imagery. Scattered low cloud, though, you can see that on the imagery, and that's coming in from the southwest. So, in essence, fine weather is in the cards, but there's always the chance for afternoon showers in the tropics. That's sort of an automatic thing that you could expect. Now, Fiji finally has announced that most of the radars are now functional. That's very nice of them. The cruising season's about over, and they've managed to fix the radars. We'll have to give them a big pat on the back.
Don't be rude.
Or some, well, I'm not rude. But no, I get fed up with them sometimes. Anyway, folks, what was I saying? Talking about the radars. Now, the only one that's still iffy is Nandi, and Nandi's been iffy for years. Erratic is probably a good word for it. It's working one day, but not the next. But anyhow, what loop we did get this morning showed a few minor returns. In other words, just a light shower here and there, scattered about the group. Absolutely nothing to really put in your water tank that I could see, just enough to make it a bit annoying. Now the winds are going to be mostly light southerly quadrant today and tomorrow. Tomorrow south-southeast about 10 to 15, and Thursday southeast 15 to 20. So it's up a little bit. So there you go. You could possibly leave again the Fiji area for Thursday, and we'll see what happens there. Now Vanuatu looks pretty good, except for the rain band that's over the southern islands, and that's from Erromango to Anisham. Winds light and variable for the most part for the group south-southeast to southeast in the northern half, but west-southwest to variable in the southern half. Tomorrow, the trades return. When I say the trades return, the winds become rather consistent out of the southeast, and that's the general trade wind direction. And they'll be southeast 15 to 20, and I would say favoring the 20 knot mark tomorrow. And on Thursday, southeast 20, maybe getting up to 25. New Caledonia now, I see the edge of the frontal band over our lagoon area, just the edge of the clouds are meandering there. And I can see the weak frontal band that's over the royalties as well. So that's the story for clouds regarding our favorite spot, the lagoon. The winds, southerly 15 to 18, with a pretty good chance of showers. Tomorrow, winds southeast in the 50 knot range, be partly cloudy. And Thursday, east-southeast to southeast, about 10 to 15, and partly cloudy. So there you go. It looks halfway decent to make your break on Thursday. Friday, you would expect more wind. I would say near 20 knots, and maybe gusts up to 30, maybe. And that'll be out of the east-southeast, and that's Friday. But if you left, you would escape that. Now the conditions early this morning, and would be light south-southeast at 12, Isle of Pines southeast at 5, Noumea northwest at 6, and the Loyalties east-southeast at 13. So not very much air running about this morning. So that's what I see. I hope I've covered what you need to hear. If not, give us a call, and we'll try to narrow it down a little bit for you. And then if you all go on Thursday, we'll track along with you and try to give you some weather en route at various latitudes to let you know what the latest models have. I know you're getting your grids, which is good, but anyway, we're here for your backup. So here's the boss. Any questions, come down.
And while anyone's getting to the radio, this is for Sarani. We've got a report from Erie 2 just came in. He's going really well, actually. Well ahead of you, actually, Alison. 2430 south and 15649 east. And the same conditions you've got, 17.5 knots from 132 sort of east-southeast. So what a difference a day makes, says Al. Indeed, indeed. So the two brothers are making good progress there. All right, is there any questions from anybody? Seeker, and how are you enjoying New Caledonia?
Oh, it's been wonderful, particularly just having a great time down at your favorite spot, and stop up where the band out is good, and regroup for a couple of days over.
Yeah, it doesn't look, actually, though, interestingly enough, the Southern Lagoon is getting those cloud bands, which you're probably seeing, but yep, oh, nice to hear from you down there enjoying that spot, yes. It is a beautiful area of New Caledonia, that's for sure, and probably a good place to be for a while because of the elections that they've got. What was it, the 4th? It must be next weekend, the elections, 4th of November, whatever date that is. Let me just check my clock here. Yes, Sunday. It seems to be a funny day for an election. All right, but yes, the elections are in the weekend, so probably a good time to be out of the city. Over.
Question for Dave, Patricia. We're thinking like the party but no rush. Sounding like maybe waiting sort of third floor to get like maybe
Okay. So, did you say Fiji? Over. Oh.
Looking like maybe trying to get in before that drug on the club, but avoiding the one so maybe a departure from Japan before the
Okay. Oh, it's almost a shame you didn't check out and just hang fire down there in Isle of Pines area. I'm going to just pass the microphone. Hang on.
Okay, did I hear right?
Sure.
Leaving the 4th? Is that what
Yes.
it was? Yeah. Well, the weather is going to be quite nice. It looks like up in New Cal at that time. Yeah, it's depends how fast you go to get down to New Zealand. Our passage times are usually about 6 days. I think we've done it in 5.5 once. But as long as you make it before those funnel bands come through, you should be all right. But we'll see what things look like tomorrow. So, how many days do you reckon for your passage? Over.
Probably 6,
Righto. Okay, that's fine. And you heard what we said about that second front. Now that can change. It usually does. So we'll stay in touch and let you know. Over.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Yeah, we'll look at that and we may end up just working our way down to Isle of Pine. Over.
Yeah, it's often is a good thing to do. It takes a day off it almost, doesn't it? So if you can get down there comfortably.
And it gets you east a little bit.
And it gets you east a bit, says David. So yeah, unless it's a miserable trip to get down there, and it can be in that lagoon, then that's a good way to do it. And I've just got a question in here. A question for David. Would Chameleon go on Thursday from Fiji? Well, that's an interesting one. I always ask him that when we turn the streaming off. So here he is.
Well, I don't know. Actually, I would wait until tomorrow before I made a decision like that. I promise you I will tell you tomorrow. We'll get the latest model runs in the morning and see what happens. We don't mind a little bit choppy in the beginning, although Patricia doesn't like it at all. Because we have enough bags.
Yeah, we do have enough bags.
Yeah, our yacht carries lots of seasick bags, but she's gotten very good at it. Well, she's only been cruising full time for 8 years. Anyway, I'm evading the question on that. So I'll tell you tomorrow.
Marty's getting to be a real pro there, so I won't say it. And I was just looking at the radar picture to see what's going on, and because I hear from John that it's raining in Opua, so there's another flaming band coming towards us. The band that has just passed through Opua is heading in our direction, so see those shadows out there? They won't last very long. All right, thank you for that, sending it down our way. But as I said, these bands are just one after the other, and a lot of rain in them. So all these, I planted my spring garden a couple of weeks ago, and it certainly is not requiring me to water it. All right, I think that's about it. He's put everything off until tomorrow, folks, so you might as well hold your questions until we get a bit more illumination on the subject tomorrow. So if anybody does have anything that we aren't going to be covering tomorrow, and certainly we'll be covering Fiji and New Caledonia to New Zealand, by the sound of it, then just drop us an email, ghradio@extra.co.nz. Oh, and also there will be the Minerva to New Zealand folk as well. So, yep, it looks like there'll be another influx. The customs people will be relaxing for a little bit up there, and for the boats that are coming in, they'll be a bit rough inside, I would imagine, after this current trip, but anyway, they'll cope with that. And we'll talk to you all again tomorrow. So this is Gulf Harbour Radio. I'm on net control today for the ham net, so anybody that's around in an hour and a half, 2100 UTC on 14315, we'll talk to you then. We do talk to the lady that's way down south with 40 knots of wind. So it's certainly the trip from up here is a lot better than the one that she's got on at the moment. She's currently down at, let me just have a look here, 47 south and 161 east, and she's got 40 knots of wind. So it's a lot worse down there than what you've got it on your way to New Zealand. All right, cheers everybody. The frequency's all yours. We'll be back again tomorrow. Trigger, goodness gracious me, the old timers that we get piping up at the end. Good morning, Chris. How are you? Yep, indeed, we're still around. Survived our weekend away, and yep, no problem with your radio signal now. I remember it was a little bit dubious at the start of the season. So, yep, and you'll be thinking of leaving the islands soon too, I presume. Over. Okay, another one that we'll know about. All right, Chris, we will hear from you when you get on the go. And if anybody else wants to do a quick radio check before you set off, that the next couple of days would be a good time to do it, just to make sure everything is a go. It's often easy. You think your radio's perfect for the short distance stuff, but just check it out on 8 megs, either with us or with Maritime Radio, and just make sure everything is a go before you set off.